The television writing career of Jimmy McGovern has taken him from a cul-de-sac to a terrace street via several moral high roads. After writing his first scripts for Channel 4's Brookside, he created the psychological crime series Cracker, before dealing with a series of contemporary controversies in one-off dramas. Catholic clerical celibacy in Priest, a football tragedy in Hillsborough, and the Irish Troubles in Sunday. His reputation as television's best teller of highly charged social stories was confirmed by the BAFTA and Emmy award-winning The Street, focusing on a different resident each episode, and Now Accused, which explains how various criminal defendants came to be in the dock.
It's always revealing, I think, with people who make a career in TV, who give their life to it. What were the first programmes that made an impression on you?
I think the first programme I ever watched was Junior Crisscross Quiz, because we came home from school and we kept coming home from school day after day after day. Is the TV aerial there? Because we knew if we saw the aerial up, we had a TV. Because we didn't get a TV till I was about 9 or 10. And things like Wyatt Earp, Wyatt Earp, Wyatt Earp, brave, courageous and bold, long live his story and long live his fame, and long may his story be told. That was American, of course. So there was an awful lot of American stuff I watched. And then a wee bit later, really interesting stuff like Wagon Train, you know, which is interesting for me because I used to love to watch a story told in that time. You know what I mean? I think even then I found it interesting because these are people on the move, you know, and on the move going from east across to west, you know, and of course after that I realised it was sort of a pastiche of the Canterbury Tales, really. You know, that kind of thing about people on the move telling each other their stories.
Also, very interesting to me, without at the risk of amateur Freudianism, but the fact that Wyatt Earp, long may his story be told, because that's your thing, isn't it? You always, whenever I see you talking to young writers, it's story is your thing.
Yeah, I love that. It's the most important thing of all. You know, I hate that notion of writers. You know, I think the last writer we had was James Joyce, because he was a genius, you know. But we've never had writers. We've had storytellers, and when you forget you're supposed to be telling a story, you're doomed, you know what I mean? I don't want to be impressed by people. I want to be entertained and engaged, you know. Tell me a story, please. For a story to be good, it must be laden with themes, mustn't it? Laden with argument. And yet, that ought not to intrude upon the story. You shouldn't be aware of the themes or the arguments until after you've watched it, and then you go away and have a think about it. You know, bullshit. It's when they start talking about structure, and you know, it's all to do with structure. All movies are to do with structure.
3-act structure, and
yeah, it's absolute rubbish, because I think we are born with an innate ability to tell stories, and you sort of. You were constantly hearing short stories, you know. You can hear people tell a joke, and there's a sense of structure there, but it's innate. It's in the joke. People tell jokes wonderfully well. They're short stories, and you know, they come into it late. They tell they tell it with panache, economy, and they finish on the punchline.
And you talk about the importance of themes. In your work, you are unashamedly, I think it openly, you're a moralist, aren't you? And right up, we look at The Accused, we look at A Soldier's Story, you're dealing with these moral issues. Is it justified to commit violence towards someone who has committed violence towards someone else? Right through your work, those are the things that come. You like to have those moral dilemmas going on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because I'm a writer, and I try to write interesting stories. You know, I always find that interesting. But I was born a Catholic, as you know, brought up a Catholic, a trade unionist. I'm supposed to be socialist, and yet, if that's the case, I'm a very, very bad Christian, a very, very bad Catholic, a very, very bad trade unionist, a very bad socialist. I'm greedy, I'm selfish, you know, all those awful things. And yet I espouse these causes, you know, and that's what fascinates me, you know. And it was there in the early days of Brookside, you know, Sheila Grant, Bobby Grant, and how hard it is to adhere to all those principles when you're trying to bring up your kids, when you're skint. There was once I was working with the Dockers, the best job I ever did in my life. I worked with them for 14 months. And we were in this bar where they all used to meet. And the Dockers had been locked out for something like 12 months. So I got the round in. And I handed in a £10 note. And the barman gave me change of 20. And I said to him, no, mate, I only gave you a tenner. You know. And I sat back. And the Dockers were looking at me like that. And I know what most of them are thinking, what an idiot. They'd have slotted that. And I sat down, and so this sort of pregnant pause. And I said, how nice to be able to afford integrity. You know, and it's spot on, isn't it? You know, I think that's what I write about, that clash between what you should do and being skint, you know, what you should do and being lazy, you know.
You're also, I think, you're a deeply Catholic writer, aren't you, regardless of your religious beliefs now, but you were educated by Jesuits, and Jesuits endlessly, they put forward those moral dilemmas. If a doctor has to decide between the life of the mother and the child, all the time, and it's all. Many of your plots are essentially those Jesuitical moral dilemmas.
Yes, they are. Yeah, and I was brought up on them. You're spot on. But I think the most important thing was I was actually brought up to respect the examination of conscience, which comes from all that, you know. And of course, if you go down that particular route, you know. Why did I do that? Because I want to be thought of as good. Or why do you want to be thought of as good? So you did it for selfish reasons? No, it wasn't purely selfish. Why did you do that? I did it so my soul could have eternal life. Oh, you selfish, you know. And that's the examination of conscience, I think. You know, and I think if you do that properly, I think you're halfway there as a writer, you know. Because we all want to write amazing stories, but we want to write with intelligence too, don't we? You know, and I think you're halfway there with that kind of stuff.
Very often in your scripts, there are big set piece scenes. So if we think in Priest, it builds up to a particular confrontation between the priest and a parishioner. In the process of writing, when you start out, do you know you're heading towards those scenes?
You know, I always bang on about this. You know, that how you can tell you've got a good story because you instantly see 5 or 6 key moments. And that moment was always there. The work comes in between those key scenes, you know, getting from them to you know. But sometimes as well, you'll find other key scenes. Things will surprise you. And part of the job is you're a sculptor and you've got a big piece of rock. And buried somewhere in that rock, there's a story. And so you're chipping away and you chip down to the essence of the story. But then you suddenly, that's that part of the job over. But now you're a potter. Now you've got to build things up again, and you start building things up, and bits fall off. You know, bits fall off, but eventually you end up with something that would appear to have always been there. It's as if you've discovered that story. You know, and of course you haven't. You've worked really hard on it. You've never stopped working, but it's hopefully on a cue you will watch that story and say to yourself, well, that story told itself. That story was always there. And yes, I hope you think that. But my God, I've put in so much effort to disguise the effort, and I've chipped away so much to produce the essence of the story, and I've built it up to such an extent as well, and expended so much energy on it that it ought to appear as though it's always been there, that we just discovered it.
To me, watching The Accused, it's a very interesting use of tension, because we think we know what's happened at the beginning because we see that somebody is in a dock. But there's a great degree of tension still and suspense about what the crime will be and exactly how they end up in this situation.
Yeah, at its best, it's like that, I think, you know. Because there's one with Chris Eccleston in, and there's a point in the story at which you would think, well, story over. He wins all this money. What's the problem? Is problem solved? No, it isn't. There's the story veers, and that's how he ends up in the dock. So yeah, you're constantly asking yourself, as you're watching the story unfold, why is he in the dock? So you tell hopefully a heart-rending story, and then followed immediately by a heart-rending moment, guilty or not guilty.
If they find you guilty, what'll you get? What'll you get?
He was trying to prepare me for the worst, so he gave me the worst case scenario. It's not necessary.
What'll you get?
About 5 or 6 years.
without you for 5 or 6 weeks, never mind 5 or 6 years.
Look, I'm not guilty, right? I've done nothing wrong, so they'll find me not guilty.
What about you? Can you do without me?
Despite everything that's happened in TV, you still have that sense of wonder about it, don't you? I mean, you believe in it.
Oh, passionately. I just think, you know, my argument is, you know, I can't stand the world of movies. I think they are so overrated. I think the vast majority are brain dead. I really do. You know, Titanic won an Oscar. For God's sake, it's a heap of crap. That won an Oscar. That's the world of movies for you. You know, but there are some stories that are so important they must never be movies. They must be TV programs, and people should just turn it on and start watching, who would never choose to watch that type of program, and something sucks them into it, and they watch this amazing story of injustice or whatever, and at the end of it, they are changed slightly, you know. I think it's so important. You can't always do that. Sometimes you're just going to entertain people, but that's not bad either, is it, to sit down and entertain like 4 or 5 million people? You know, that's you know, it's precious. And, you know, yeah, when people talk about it or don't wake up every day and appreciate how lucky they are, it really annoys me, you know, it really annoys me.
You said that TV is superior to the movies. You also crucially believe that it's superior to theatre. We did a public event recently, and a young writer stood up in the audience and said, "Mr. McGovern, I'm a young theatre writer and I want to get into TV. What should I do?" And you said, "Stop writing for theatre. Theatre dramatists have a card in their top pockets saying license to bore. You will never learn anything about structure and narrative and storytelling from theatre. Stop writing for theatre now."
Yeah, well, as often happens with me, I overstated my case, but it's true as well. There's an element of truth in there. And I think it's born of the fact that every time I go to the theatre, I am bored. And somebody always says to me, "Oh, you should have seen the last thing they had on here. It was brilliant." You know, I always seem to miss the great stuff, you know. So I do find theatre pretty boring. And I think I do... It seems to me... Melvyn Bragg, I was chatting to... I'm not name-dropping, honestly, you know, but I was having a chat to Melvyn Bragg, and he was going to theatre that night. And I said, the last time I went to the theatre was some bloody Irish play, and there's no greater windbaggery than